You've felt it before. That sinking feeling in your gut when someone talks to you a little too sweetly, when their compliments feel like currency, when their concern starts to feel like control. You can't explain it, but something is off. Manipulators don't come wearing signs. They come wearing charm. They play the long game. They learn your weaknesses, your insecurities, your fears, and they weaponize them, one subtle move at a time. And if you've ever found yourself constantly second-guessing your decisions, apologizing for things you didn't do, or feeling drained after every conversation with a certain person, chances are you've been targeted. But here's the question no one asks. Why you? Why do manipulators pick you specifically? The answer isn't that you're weak. It's that you're open. You're empathetic. You want to avoid conflict. And in the eyes of a manipulator, that makes you a prime target. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a shield, a philosophy so powerful, it has endured wars, betrayal, and centuries of human chaos. Stoicism, the ancient art of controlling your mind, your reactions, and your peace. When you understand Stoic defense, manipulators lose their grip. Their mind games don't land. Their emotional traps don't catch you. Why? Because the Stoic sees clearly. He is not ruled by flattery or fear. He is unmoved by guilt or pressure. He lives by inner principles, not external manipulation. In this video, we'll break down exactly why manipulators target people like you, and how Stoic tactics can make you mentally untouchable. You'll learn the traits manipulators look for, how they operate psychologically, and most importantly, how to build a mental defense system based on the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming wise. Because the truth is, emotional manipulation thrives in the dark, and Stoicism is light. So if you've ever been used, played, guilt-tripped, or controlled, it's time to step into a new mindset. One that protects your boundaries, sharpens your awareness, and restores your power. Welcome to the path of the unshakable. This is why manipulators target you, and how to fight back like a Stoic. Why manipulators target you. Manipulators don't target everyone. They're not reckless. They're strategic. Like predators in the wild, they scan the crowd for the easiest prey. Not the strongest, not the most defiant, but the most unaware. The people who want peace more than confrontation. The ones who doubt their own instincts. The ones who are afraid of being too harsh or too selfish. And the truth is, most manipulators target people who are kind, empathetic, and eager to be liked. That's right. Your good qualities can be used against you if they are not backed by self-respect and mental clarity. You see, manipulators feed on passivity. If you struggle to say no, if you constantly explain yourself, if you're quick to forgive without boundaries, you are sending out a silent signal. I am pliable. And that's all a manipulator needs to begin weaving their web. They don't start by controlling you. They start by earning your trust. A little flattery here. A fake compliment there. They remember what you like, what you fear, what you regret. And then, slowly, they begin to use it. They'll say things like, "You're overreacting," or "I thought you were different," or "I guess I can't talk to you about anything." These are not just words. They're psychological traps designed to make you question yourself and let your guard down. Most people think manipulation is loud, obvious. It's not. It's quiet. It wears the mask of love, friendship, mentorship. A manipulator will pretend to be your savior while slowly turning you into their puppet. And they don't do it out of random cruelty. They do it because it works, especially on people who haven't trained their mind to recognize the signs. That's why manipulators rarely go after strong-willed, self-possessed individuals. It's too much work. They look for emotional gaps. People who seek approval, who fear rejection, who feel guilty for putting themselves first. It's not your fault if you've been targeted, but it is your responsibility to stop it from happening again. And that starts by asking yourself some hard questions. Do you often agree just to keep the peace? Do you apologize even when you're not sure you did anything wrong? Do you feel uncomfortable setting boundaries because you don't want to be seen as mean? These are the behaviors manipulators search for like bloodhounds. Not because you're weak, but because you've been trained by culture, family, or past experiences to put others above yourself. And manipulators love that. They also look for emotional reactivity. The more emotionally reactive you are, the easier you are to steer. If someone can make you feel guilty, angry, confused, or ashamed with just a few words, they found the steering wheel to your life. And once they have it, they'll use it to direct your actions, subtly at first, and then openly. You won't even realize it's happening until you're stuck in a pattern where everything revolves around their moods, their needs, their drama. That's not love. That's control. But here's the secret. Manipulators lose all their power when you stop reacting emotionally and start responding rationally. And this is where Stoicism becomes your greatest weapon. The Stoic doesn't suppress emotion. He studies it. He masters it. He knows that the person who can remain calm when provoked is the most dangerous person in the room. Because calm is clarity. Calm is power. Manipulators don't know what to do with people who stay calm. They can't guilt trip you. They can't bait you. They can't throw you off your axis. Because you're not dancing to their emotional music anymore. The Stoic also lives by principle, not pressure. You say no when it's not right. You walk away when respect is lost. You hold your ground without needing to explain yourself to someone who's only trying to twist your words. That kind of mental discipline makes you untouchable. Manipulators rely on fog, on confusion, on your desire to please. But Stoicism is clarity, simplicity, and inner strength. When you live like that, manipulators don't just leave you alone. They fear you. So why do manipulators target you? Because they think you won't notice. Because you have empathy without boundaries. Because you want peace more than truth. But now that you see it, you can stop it. You can stop being a silent participant in your own manipulation. And you can start becoming the kind of person who doesn't just resist manipulation, but sees through it, disarms it, and walks away with calm dignity. That's the beginning of power. That's the beginning of Stoic defense. The psychology of a manipulator. To defend yourself against a manipulator, you must first understand how they think. A manipulator is not always a villain in the traditional sense. In fact, many manipulators see themselves as victims, not predators. They believe the world owes them something, that they are simply doing what's necessary to get their needs met. But underneath their charm and surface-level likability is a deeply insecure and controlling nature. A manipulator operates from scarcity, not just of resources, but of love, attention, and validation. They don't know how to earn things through honesty or integrity, so they learn to extract them through subtle control. And they often target people who are emotionally generous because it gives them a steady supply of what they crave: power, approval, sympathy, and attention. At their core, manipulators are masterful observers of human behavior. They can read people quickly. What makes them tick? What makes them feel guilty? What makes them crave connection? They are especially good at identifying people who lack boundaries or who are hesitant to speak their mind. These people become easy targets because they don't push back. They're more likely to absorb blame, carry guilt, and accommodate others even when it comes at a personal cost. One of the most powerful tools in a manipulator's arsenal is confusion. If they can confuse your perception of reality, they can control you. This is what we call gaslighting. It's not just lying. It's systematically eroding your ability to trust your own mind. You might hear things like, "You're being too sensitive," or "I never said that," or "You're making things up again." Over time, this can wear down your confidence. You start second-guessing yourself. And when that happens, the manipulator gains full control. Not just of the situation, but of your sense of self. Another psychological trick manipulators use is love bombing. This is when they flood you with praise, affection, gifts, and attention early in a relationship. It's overwhelming and intoxicating. You feel seen. You feel special. But it's not real. It's a setup. Because once they've hooked you with affection, they begin to shift. The praise turns to criticism. The warmth turns cold. The attention becomes conditional. But by then, you're emotionally invested. You want that high back. So you start working harder for their approval. And that's exactly where they want you. Chasing validation, compromising yourself, accepting less and less. Some manipulators use guilt as their primary tool. They remind you of everything they've done for you. They exaggerate their sacrifices. They portray themselves as victims. And if you ever try to set a boundary or express discomfort, they flip the narrative. After everything I've done for you, I guess I'm just the bad guy now. These statements aren't just meant to express pain. They're meant to control your behavior. They make you feel responsible for someone else's emotions, and in doing so, you surrender your power. Then there's triangulation. This is when a manipulator brings in a third person, real or imagined, to make you feel insecure or to create competition. For example, they may say something like, "Well, my last friend didn't have a problem with this," or "Everyone else seems to think you're the issue." This tactic isolates you and makes you doubt your worth. It creates anxiety and forces you to seek approval. And every time you do, the manipulator tightens their grip. What makes all of this even more insidious is that manipulators often believe they are justified. They think they are smarter, more aware, more deserving. They see boundaries as threats. They see your independence as rebellion. And when you try to break free, they escalate. They don't let go easily because to them, control is survival. Losing control means losing relevance, and that terrifies them. But this is exactly why Stoic philosophy is so effective in dealing with them. Because Stoicism teaches you to detach from approval. It trains you to trust your reason, not your emotions. And most importantly, it helps you develop internal validation. So you are no longer dependent on anyone else's praise, permission, or perception. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject," he was pointing to the very core of emotional freedom. What people think, say, or do is none of your business if it is not aligned with reason and virtue. Manipulators lose all influence when their emotional hooks stop working. When you respond with logic, not guilt. When you observe calmly instead of reacting emotionally. When you protect your time, your energy, and your attention like sacred resources. That's when the manipulator begins to realize, this person cannot be swayed. Understanding the psychology of the manipulator is not about becoming paranoid or cynical. It's about becoming aware. Once you can identify their tactics, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, love-bombing, triangulation, you strip them of their power. They can't trick you if you're not chasing their approval. They can't confuse you if you know your values. They can't shake you if you've built your identity on solid ground. That's what Stoicism offers. Not emotional numbness, but emotional clarity. Not coldness, but conviction. You don't have to play mind games. You don't have to fight fire with fire. You simply have to stand still, calm, aware, and unmoved. And that is the one thing manipulators cannot handle. A person who sees them clearly and does not flinch. How Stoicism makes you immune. If you want to become immune to manipulators, you don't need tricks. You need principles. That's what Stoicism gives you. a way of seeing the world that is based on reason, clarity, and personal control. It doesn't matter if the manipulator is a friend, partner, boss, or even a family member. Once you adopt the Stoic mindset, you become emotionally bulletproof. Not cold, not indifferent, but free. And freedom is the one thing manipulators cannot survive. So how does Stoicism make you immune? First, by grounding you in what you can and cannot control. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control and others not." This is the foundation. When you realize that you are only responsible for your thoughts, your actions, and your choices, not for how others perceive you, not for their reactions, not for their emotions, then guilt loses its grip. Manipulators thrive when you feel responsible for their happiness. But the Stoic knows, I cannot control another person's mood. I can only control my response. That's the beginning of emotional detachment. Not in a heartless way, but in a sane, rational way. You stop trying to fix people. You stop trying to be the savior. And because of that, manipulators lose their leverage. Second, Stoicism teaches you to pause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, no one can emotionally hijack you unless you allow it. When someone tries to manipulate you, through anger, guilt, or flattery, your job is to pause. Don't react. Observe. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this aligned with reason? Or is this emotional bait? That pause is your power. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you can choose strength over weakness, clarity over confusion. Third, Stoicism helps you recognize false judgments. Most manipulation works because you believe things that aren't true. If I say no, I'm a bad person. If I don't please them, I'll lose their love. If I walk away, I'll be alone forever. These are distortions. They're beliefs you've never questioned. But Stoicism trains you to inspect your beliefs like a scientist, to challenge your assumptions, to ask, is this belief helping me live with virtue, or is it keeping me enslaved? A Stoic rewrites their mental scripts. They replace guilt with logic. They replace fear with perspective. And because of that, manipulators can't use old emotional programming to control them. Fourth, Stoicism restores your self-respect. Seneca said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." When you're under the thumb of a manipulator, you suffer constantly, anticipating their moods, managing their expectations, questioning your own sanity. But the Stoic reclaims his dignity. He says, "No more." Not with anger, not with drama, but with calm, unshakable resolve. He knows that self-respect is not given. It's practiced. You earn it every time you say no to manipulation. Every time you walk away from emotional chaos. Every time you choose peace over pleasing. That's what makes you strong. Not aggression, but boundaries. Fifth, Stoicism turns pain into power. Manipulators often try to exploit your past wounds. Rejection, shame, abandonment. They poke at your fears. But the Stoic doesn't hide from pain. He uses it. He examines it. He learns from it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When you become Stoic, your pain no longer paralyzes you. It guides you. You look at your patterns. You study your reactions. And you grow. That growth becomes your armor. It's not that you're untouched by emotion. It's that you're no longer ruled by it. Finally, Stoicism gives you the ultimate weapon. Indifference to things outside your control. Manipulators hate indifference. They feed on your need to be liked, your fear of rejection, your hunger for validation. But when you are truly stoic, you don't fear disapproval. You don't chase love. You don't bend just to keep the peace. You live by inner principles, not outer pressure. And that makes you immune. Because once you stop needing anything from the manipulator, their affection, their approval, their permission, they lose all control over you. Imagine walking into a conversation with someone who once triggered you, and instead of reacting, you listen. You observe. You respond with clarity, not emotion. Imagine hearing a guilt trip and simply replying, "That's not my responsibility." Imagine someone trying to shame you, and you calmly say, "You're entitled to your opinion." That's the power of Stoicism. Not to win arguments, but to rise above them. You don't have to fight. You don't have to explain. You just have to stay rooted in your values. That's what manipulators can't stand. Someone they can't confuse, someone who doesn't crave approval, someone who won't play the game. And when you become that person, they disappear. They move on, because their tools no longer work on you. That's not magic. That's mental discipline. And it's available to anyone willing to live by reason over reaction, principles over pressure, clarity over chaos. Real-life Stoic tactics for mental defense. Now that you understand how manipulators think and how Stoicism builds immunity, let's move from theory to practice. Because knowledge without action is useless. The Stoics were philosophers, yes, but they were also warriors of the mind. They didn't just talk about virtue, they lived it. They trained daily like soldiers, not in a gym, but in their own thoughts. And if you want to be immune to manipulation, you need daily practices that sharpen your inner weaponry. Here are Stoic tactics you can use right now to defend your mind and protect your peace. 1. The power of the pause. In Stoicism, your first line of defense is always the pause. Before you react, stop. When someone makes a cutting remark, guilts you, or tries to draw you into emotional chaos, don't say anything. Don't rush to defend or explain. Just pause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That moment of silence is your fortress. It gives you space to ask, what's really happening here? Am I being manipulated? Or am I just uncomfortable? That small delay is often the difference between being pulled into drama and staying in control. 2. Daily reflection. Evening journaling. Epictetus believed philosophy was not for show, but for life. One powerful Stoic habit is evening journaling. At the end of the day, ask yourself, where did I lose control today? Who pushed my buttons? What emotional bait did I fall for? Then reflect. What would a Stoic have done instead? This trains your awareness. And the more you see, the more you can change. You begin to recognize patterns. People who consistently overstep, situations that provoke guilt, lies you tell yourself to avoid confrontation. Clarity turns into confidence, and confidence turns into peace. 3. The premeditation of evils, negative visualization. Seneca taught a practice called premeditatio malorum, imagining what could go wrong before it happens. Not to become fearful, but to prepare mentally. Each morning, picture someone trying to guilt you. Imagine being insulted. Visualize manipulation. Then ask, how will I respond with strength and calm? This prepares your emotional system. When it happens in real life, it doesn't shake you. You're already ready. This practice turns pain into preparation. The Stoic mind expects challenges, rehearses virtue, and stands ready. Not surprised, not offended, just centered. 4. Know your non-negotiables. Most people don't have boundaries. They have vague feelings. That's why manipulators get in so easily. A Stoic, however, defines clear non-negotiables. Things you will not tolerate, no matter what. For example, I do not allow people to guilt-trip me. I do not accept being lied to. I do not explain myself to those twisting my words. Write your non-negotiables down. Say them to yourself daily. When someone crosses that line, you don't have to think. You don't have to debate. You just calmly walk away. Stoic boundaries are not loud. They are immovable. 5. Detachment from outcomes. Manipulators control people through fear of outcomes. They'll leave you, they'll smear you, they'll hate you. But the Stoic is immune to these threats. Why? Because they are detached from outcomes. You do your part. You speak clearly, you act with virtue, and let go of the rest. As Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. You don't need to be liked. You don't need to win arguments. You don't need to convince. You need only to live aligned with your principles. That's freedom. 6. The discipline of assent. The Stoics talked about assent, your mind's agreement to a thought. Just because someone accuses you of something doesn't make it true. Just because you feel guilt doesn't mean you did something wrong. Every thought is a proposal. You don't have to accept it. When a manipulator throws emotional bait, pause and ask, is this based on reason? Or is this noise? You are the gatekeeper of your mind. Nothing enters without your consent. That's Stoic defense. 7. Exposure therapy to discomfort. A Stoic voluntarily steps into discomfort. Why? Because if you can handle discomfort, you can't be manipulated. Try saying no when you normally say yes. Don't explain. Sit in the silence. Let them react. Let them sulk, blame, threaten, cry. Don't move. You'll feel anxiety, but you'll also feel something else, freedom. The more you do this, the stronger your will becomes. You stop fearing discomfort, and that makes you untouchable. Manipulators feed on your fear. When fear dies, so does their power. 8. Reframe every attack as training. Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. When someone tries to manipulate you, don't see it as a threat. See it as practice. This person is helping me strengthen my emotional discipline. When someone lies to you, tries to gaslight you, or guilt you, good. Another rep. Another lesson. Another layer of resilience. Every encounter becomes a form of mental weightlifting. The Stoic doesn't wish for an easy life. He trains for a strong mind. 9. Silence as a strategic weapon. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to respond to every emotional hook. Silence, when used with awareness, is a powerful defense. A Stoic does not engage in emotional ping-pong. They recognize when a conversation is designed to confuse, not clarify, and they exit. When someone accuses you falsely, you don't defend. When someone tries to provoke, you don't react. You sit in silence. And silence, especially in today's reactive world, is terrifying to manipulators, because it shows you cannot be moved. 10. Return to reason, always. At the end of every Stoic tactic is this question. What does reason demand of me? Not emotion, not guilt, not pressure. Reason. That is your compass. When you are attacked, return to reason. When you are confused, return to reason. When you are afraid, return to reason. That's what keeps you centered. That's what keeps you calm. And that is how you break the invisible grip of emotional control. If you've made it this far, you're already doing something 99% of people never do. You're choosing to think. You're choosing to examine your life, your patterns, and the mental traps that have kept you vulnerable to manipulation. And that's the beginning of power. Not power over others. Power over yourself. That's the Stoic path. That's the road to inner freedom. Because no matter how loud the world gets, no matter how many people try to control, guilt, flatter, or pressure you. You are the one who decides how you respond. The manipulators of this world are not always obvious. They don't wear black capes. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes they use love, fear, status, or even logic. But their goal is always the same. Control. Control over your thoughts. Control over your actions. Control over your life. And they win when you abandon reason. They win when you live for their approval. They win when you confuse peace with people-pleasing and kindness with weakness. But the Stoic learns to see through it all, calmly, clearly, and courageously. You are not here to be a puppet. You are not here to be the emotional dumping ground for others. You are not here to be guilt-tripped into submission. You are here to live with virtue, to choose your values, stand by them, and let the chips fall where they may. That is what makes you untouchable. That is what makes you dangerous to manipulators. You are no longer a reactor. You are a responder. And you don't live by fear, but by philosophy. So what now? Now is the time to train. Not once, not twice, but every single day. Like a Stoic. Start with the pause. That sacred space between what happens and what you choose to do about it. Build the habit of journaling. Reflect, adjust, grow. Learn to walk away from what insults your peace without needing permission. Say no without guilt. Sit in discomfort without breaking. Choose clarity over chaos. Replace emotional triggers with thoughtful questions. And most of all, stop looking outside for control. The only fortress that matters is your own mind. And if this message spoke to you, if you felt something stir inside as you listened, then don't let it be just another idea that fades tomorrow. Take it seriously, because your freedom depends on it. A free mind isn't born, it's built. With effort, with reflection, and with the discipline to stand firm when the world wants you to bend. If you found value in this, share it. Spread the Stoic mindset. Not to change others, but to remind them, and yourself, that there's a better way to live, a stronger way, a freer way. And finally, if you want more deep, clear, and brutally honest content like this, content that challenges you to think harder and live better, then subscribe to this channel. This is not a place for surface-level tips. This is where we sharpen the mind like a blade. This is where we train to become the kind of person manipulators fear. A person who cannot be moved by flattery, threats, or chaos. Remember, the mind is like a muscle. If you don't train it, the world will train it for you. Usually, in all the wrong ways. So choose the path of the Stoic. Choose self-mastery over comfort. Choose reason over reaction.